Hari Om. We will begin. Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Lokashankaram. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Kruto Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkrupa Tamaham Vande Paramanandamadhavam. Paramanandamadhavam. Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drak Tadrishyam Draktumanasam Drishyadhi Vrittaya Sakshi Drage Vanatu Drishyate. In our last class, we were seeing the shloka. What is this nature of me, the individual? And what is the false nature, or who is this jiva? So that is also explained with this shloka. Just a thought flow as to how we got to where we are. Our author started by explaining the difference between the seer and the seen. And in this process, he took us to the seer and said, I am the ultimate seer. This is my true nature, that which is completely untouched, unseen by anything, yet knows, yet aware of the self, and makes everything else shine. This is who I am. Then it talked about the false nature. My ultimate nature, the self, that is the Sakshi. But then the false nature, which is the Jiva. This Jiva gets broken down into two. So you'll see the very systematic way in the author breaks down everything. Doesn't just, go on talking about it, but classification is a very key thing um, in our scriptures and in the Rishi Parampara. Even Gurudev, when you look at Kindle Life, the way that he systematically breaks down the chapters, the way he breaks down and classifies certain things, it just gets easier to grasp what Vedanta really is. So we'll see that the classification happening here. So then he says, okay, let's classify this jiva. And this jiva, it has functions based on two things: the I thought, the ahankar thought, and the karana thought, which is the instrument thought. Then goes on explaining what does this I thought really do? How does this I thought really function in order to give the illusion that this I thought is the reality, which is not really the case, but it gives this false identity. And this false identity is what is causing us to go through so much problem in this world. And this has come about from Bhranti that was explained. And this Bhranti goes by Prabodha, by knowledge. Then goes on talking about Antahkarana a little bit. That this Antahkarana does nothing but desires for this and that. And when it desires, it makes the body, it makes the senses function according to those desires. And this, in three states, they all function. And finally, in shloka number 12, we see the jiva's definition is given, that this jiva is mano ahankrutyupadanam. It is a combination of both. And when it comes about, it is linam or lingam ekam. It's one. And it is jada. It is inert. And this jiva indicates for us the hidden self. If it was not for the mind, body, or the mind equipment, the mind intellect, this whole antakarana, we wouldn't know that consciousness really is. A brick wall is not able to express consciousness. And like that, the mountain, the rivers, all these things, they look really beautiful, but they cannot express the consciousness. And it only can be expressed where there is mind. So the presence of the mind also is pointing towards the self. And that is what is explained by lingam. So this jiva also is called lingam because in it hides the expression of my real nature. Anytime there is a light, anytime we are able to see something, there is a presence of light known. You cannot deny that light is not there. Similarly is this idea. And this is the one that is going through all the three avasthas. Avastha trayam anveti. This is the one travels through all of them. So body doesn't travel. Body is just stationary. But this jiva travels. And it alone is going through birth and death. Now, the next topic, which is a very interesting topic that has been taken up. We say that this entire, we saw through this process that me, the real self, the Sakshi, other than me, the Sakshi, everything else is false. So the body is false, the senses are false, the objects of the world is false, the river, mountain, all these, those are false. But me, the self, is real. This in Shastra way is called as Tvam Pada Vichar. Right? So we are trying to understand who is the I, who is the true me. But in that process of understanding me, the real self, I am also part of this creation. The body is part of this creation. The mind is part of this creation. Where did this come from? The question can arise. Okay, I understand when you talk about me, the jiva, that my real nature is Sakshi. Okay. But then there is this body, there is this mind. Where did that come from? You say, I didn't create it, because if I created it, I would have known. But I don't know. I don't have a recollection of it. And by the definitions that have been given thus far, there's nowhere where it indicates that Atma created the body or Atma created the subtle mind. Atma simply says that it entered the mind. What created the mind? Where did this creation process itself begin to encompass all of us? I am a jiva, but like that, many jivas are there. Where did they find their creation process beginning? And like that, what about the plant, the trees, the mountains, and all of that? So it now takes into the process of totality. And to give us the connection that the totality and individuality are not too different. Both are same. It's just that we're taking a piece or a pie of a pizza and are looking at ourselves as that and are satisfied with that. But there is this totality that we are connected with, and that totality also behaves in the same way as the individuality. And that will be the connection brought about. So let's begin with the next shloka, which is number 13. शक्तिद्वयं हि मायाया विक्षेपावृत्तिरूपकम् विक्षेपशक्तिर्लिङ्गादि ब्रह्माण्डान्तं जगत्सृजेत्. शक्तिद्वयं हि मायाया विक्षेपावृत्तिरूपकम् विक्षेपशक्तिर्लिङ्गादि ब्रह्माण्डान्तं जगत्सृजेत्. So now the explanation is that there is a Shakti, Shakti Dvayam. There are two Shaktis actually of Maya, Mayaya, of the Maya. One is called Vikshepa, another is called Avrutti, Rupakam, of the nature of. So this Maya has two powers. One is the Vikshepa Shakti and second is the Avrana Shakti. So basically what it is saying is Maya is the cause for the totality. So then let's understand what is meant by Maya here and what is meant by avidya. Sometimes there is this confusion that arises. If I am Ishvara, if I am this Atma, then why did I cause myself to be ignorant? It's not like that. What we are facing through is the effects of the Maya, whereas the power of Maya is something different. So let's separate this idea a little bit of what we understand by Maya to mean. If we go back to basics, Tattvabodh and Atmabodh, there we find that Adi Shankaracharya ji presents Maya is the Brahmashraya. It is taking recourse to Brahman. So Maya is not a power of its own. It's not independent. That is what is meant. It requires something for it to come into effect, for it to play its part. And what is that? It requires the Brahman. It requires the Sat Chit Ananda, the consciousness, for it to work. So Brahman plus Maya equals creation. So then what is really Maya? Then you look at Viveka Chudamani, and there Adi Shankaracharya ji gives, in a different way, the definition of Maya. And he says, if you look at Maya from the perspective of the Jagat, of the creation, then Maya is a power. It is the force which can manifest into different creation. And we're not talking about just us. When we say body is part of Maya. When we say my mind, that is part of Maya. But like that, all the bodies, that is also creation of Maya. All the mind, that is also creation of Maya. This is the power. And is it just talking about human beings? No, even the small creatures. Is that it? No, even in Bhagavad and the Purans, we find all the 14 lokas that are mentioned. So 7 urdhva loka and 7 adha or 6 adha, and the one in the middle, that is what we call as the bhuloka, the world that we live in. So like that comes about. So that is one solar system. And like that, many solar systems are there. Many galaxies are there. And this much, all of this is encompassed by Maya. So the power to manifest in different ways possible. And that which we have not even seen right now. We as a human beings have only seen very limited portion. So this is what is meant as Maya, that it is the manifestation power of Brahman. So it is a Shakti from the perspective of Jagat. Okay. From the perspective of Brahman, what is Maya? So then Adi Shankaracharya says, it is Asat. Maya is not there. Because how can Maya be there which is dual when Brahman itself is non-dual? So the fact that I am seeing Maya means it is an illusion. It is not there at all. I take a look at a book and I see it is a very compact, solid book. Okay. But or if you take a table or a wooden piece of thing, and if you drive a nail through it, drive something through it, it will create a hole. But there will still be some piece intact in it, meaning it created a space. And when it created a space, some pieces fell out, but some pieces stayed intact. That means there is space inside of this. And we know this. Although the book remains or looks so solid, we know that there is so much of space that goes through the book. All the atoms that are put together in such a way that if you were to close in on this idea, you will see that it is nothing but pieces of atoms put together. So therefore, what is the reality? If we take a look at, again, this book, the color seems white, right? But color seems white to who? To you and I, the human eyes. It seems white. If we were to ask a dog, what would the color be of this? Well, the dogs don't tell, but I guess the research has been done that they see nothing but black. If you were to ask a snake, the research says that they see infrared, ultraviolet. So then what is really the color of this? Is it really white or is it something else? The point is, we don't know. We don't know the reality. So Maya is an illusion because although it is not there, it appears as there. Okay? So from one aspect, it is the power, it creates. But from the other aspect, it is not really there. What about from the perspective of the Maya itself? You talk about it from the perspective of the Jagat, it is the power. You talk about it from the perspective of Brahman, it is not there. What about from the perspective of Maya itself? What will you say Maya is? So it says Maya is anirvachaniya. It is indescribable. So you cannot describe how this Maya is. Why it is anirvachaniya? It is anirvachaniya because when we are in the grasp of Maya, when we are functioning through Maya, everything seems real. Everything seems like it is there. But in a higher reality, we know that it is going to end. Like how our dream is. Everything seems real when we are in the dream world. But the moment we wake up, we know that the dream world was false. So it is like that in one, it is describable, in another, it is not. So it is anirvachaniya. You cannot say it is sat also, and you cannot say it is asat also. It is mithya. This is how Maya has to be understood. A very magnificent power of Brahman, but that which does not delude Brahman. Because Brahman is using the power. So to say, it's not really that Brahman is using the power, but this power of Maya is in Brahman, but it does not delude Brahman. Just like how, if we create a robot, or, now Apple creates Siri, so Siri will follow your command. You give your phone to somebody else, will not follow their command. It is like that Brahman's Maya will follow the command of Brahman only, but it will not follow my command. But I can overpass the fact that this is, as a jiva, I can oversee that, and I do not have to become deluded by it. That's the point. So Maya is a very magnificent power which creates this entire creation. And this creation has this Shakti has two classifications. So again, classification into two. Vikshepa and Avritti Rupakam, of the two nature. So Vikshepa means that which projects in many forms. Not just one form, many forms. And avrana or avritti shakti means the veiling power. It hides something, then it projects. A very nice example, many times we have seen. In order for us to see a movie, you want to project a movie on the projector, you need a screen that is completely white. If you have a painted screen and on that you project something, it will not work. You will see light, but you will not see what has been projected. Like that, if you were to capture each images at each time and keep on projecting, after certain time, you will not be able to see what is the real picture. So what does that mean is that it has to cover the wall first. It has to veil the real background of the wall. Say you have a brick wall. So you have to make that brick wall turn into something white. And then on top of that, you start your projector. And then you will get your nice picture. Similarly, in order for the world creation to happen, Avrana Shakti has to work first. And when it veils the nature of the self, then it projects the Jagat for us. So first point that is taken up is the answer of what is the Vikshepa Shakti. What does Vikshepa Shakti do? So it says, Vikshepa Shakti Lingadi Brahmanda Antam Jagat Sarjet. The projecting power is the one that creates. What does it create? Lingadi. Lingadi, so that means Linga Sharira, me, the Jiva. And like that, many other Jivas. So therefore, this projecting power is the power that is creating the all Jivas, all the plants, all the animals, all the mountains, the rivers, and everything, all the planets in the cosmos. Brahmanda Antam, till Brahmanda. And not only just one Brahmanda, multitude of Brahmandas are there. So all of this is created by Vikshepa Shakti. This is the projection power. Now this projection power is further elaborated with the next shloka, where our author gives us definition of what is samsara. How does this Jagat explained? सृष्टिर्नाम ब्रह्मरूपे सच्चिदानन्दवस्तुनि अब्धौ फेनादिवत् सर्वम् नामरूप प्रसारणाम् सृष्टिर्नाम ब्रह्मरूपे सच्चिदानन्दवस्तुनि अब्धौ फेनादिवत् सर्वम् नामरूप प्रसारणाम्. Satchit Ananda Vastuni. Vastuni in the object, which is Satchit Ananda. Now, a very nice way this word vastuni is used. Vastu always kind of gives us the connotation of some object, something. And normally when we associate ourselves with the world, that is what comes to mind first. So here, by using the word vastu, it is trying to indicate that, hey, look, this projection of this whole creation, which seems as a vastu, is actually in the real self, which is this. So this is the real vastu, which is without any object, without any name, without any form, completely clear, changeless. So Sat Chit Ananda Vastuni, in the self, which is existence, consciousness, bliss. And this is who? Brahma Rupe. This self is of the nature of Brahman. So therefore, whenever we associate the Sat Chit Ananda, the consciousness, we associate with Brahman. Because who are we talking about? The totality here. This is not just me, the individual. This is the total creation. So therefore, Bruhatvat Brahma. When we say Brahma, we are saying that which is really big. Sometimes people get, a really vague concept of big, and they say, Hinduism says big means, Brahman is that which is everything encompassing. And then this Brahman then split into so many different gods and goddesses. No, it's not just simply related to beings. When we say Brahman, we are saying Brahman is that which is without object, without space, and without time. The distinctions or the differences that is created in this world because of these three things, those are not there. And because they are not there, that is why it is Brahman. That is why it is big. So big here is not indicating literally big. Because the world itself is literally big, you cannot say that the Brahman is so small that it is hiding in some center of this universe. That which is a substratum cannot be hiding somewhere and then projecting the creation. It is spread throughout the whole creation. So therefore, it is big because the manifestation seems so big. When we are in deep sleep, if you think about it, how big is your self? We have no recollection. We have no knowledge of it. We cannot say, right now I'm present, right? Right now I am awake. Right now I'm aware. How big will we say is our presence? How big will we say is our nature of the self? We will easily say it is limited to my body. I know it is not limited. The self is not limited by any ways, but my experience of it is, I will say it is limited to this. But when I am in deep sleep, I have no recollection of it. I don't say that it is this big or this small. Because in deep sleep, I don't have recollection. So the idea is that when we say Brahma, the self is just simply without any sorts of distinctions. Distinctions created by the space, time, and object. None are there. Therefore, it is Brahman. And this Brahman alone is creating this entire Jagat. So, Brahma Rupe Satchidananda Vastuni, in this, Srishtihi Nama, this creation, what is this creation? So, this creation is named as Nama Rupa Prasarana. This creation is prasarana, a spreading of multiple names and form. How? So then it says, Abdhau Phenadivat Sarva. Like in the ocean, when the water comes and hits the shore, you see those bubbles forming up. That phena, that is what is called as phena. So it is the foam that comes about on the shore. Now think about how vast the ocean is, how vast the water of the ocean is. You do not find in the middle of the ocean these bubbles forming. In the middle, it's just a wave rising up and down, up and down, up and down. But normally, it's to the shore. Along the shores is where you find these bubbles. So the idea is the creation, all of us are like that phena, very small amounting of the entire, Brahman. But like that, this creation is. And it is, where did this formation came about? And it is nothing but water, just because of force, has modified into a bubble, has come into looking like a white foam. Similarly, everything that we see in this creation has nama, has rupa. And by that, we have to also understand rupa, rasa, gandha, all of that, all combined. So Srishtihi, what is this creation? Srishtihi sarva nama rupa prasarana. This creation is nothing but name and form that has been multiple spread. And that is what we use in language. If it doesn't have a name, if it doesn't have a form, you cannot bring it into language. For language to become, transaction to become, something has to be there. Something we can cognize and give wording to. So therefore, name and form. Right? But it changes. But because it changes, that's not the important point. Like that, the whole world changes so many times. But the fact is, on what is it changing? On the substratum. And that substratum is changeless. So by this idea, one fact is also presented, that there is a changeless substratum and nama rupa prasarana that is changing at all times. Like how in the ocean is, the water of the ocean is ever. We don't find that the ocean water is receding. In fact, there is more ocean water coming with all the ice caps melting. So it is actually increasing. Yet, we don't see that there is increase or decrease. And what are the bubbles? Bubbles are nothing but creation in this water. So one is the substratum and the other is the superimposition on the substratum. So the entire creation, the Vikshepa Shakti, is causing the superimposition on the substratum. This is what the power of Vikshepa does. Okay. And what does the power of Avarana do? Is what the next thought takes up. Antardrshyorbhedam बहिश्च ब्रह्मसर्गयोः आवृणोत्यपरा शक्तिः सा संसारस्य कारणम्। अन्तर्दृग्दृश्ययोर्भेदम् बहिश्च ब्रह्मसर्गयोः आवृणोत्यपरा शक्तिः सा संसारस्य कारणम्। This is what the Avrana Shakti do. See how the connection is now built between the Jiva and the totality. Antaha, antaha, internal, inside. Inside what? With reference to body, inside is mentioned. Antaha Drshyayoho bhedam. The distinction of the real seer, me, the Sakshi, and the seen, mind, body, and etc. This too, and Brahma Sargayoho. Brahma, the supreme self, and Sarga, the creation. The creation which is the superimposition on the substratum Brahman. So distinction of the two, external, Bahi, so outside of the body. That is what the idea is. Avrunoti, it veils, it covers. So therefore, I cannot see the distinction anymore. You may recognize the distinction now. And the reason basically is Guru came into our life to give us that distinction. Before study of Vedanta, we never knew that the world that we are seeing is different from something that is actually real. We thought what we saw in the world is real. This is how the world is. This is the reality. But we did not know that there is this ultimate fact hidden behind it. And this is what the Guru is explaining to us, that this was hidden before the knowledge. Now the knowledge has cleared that distinction. So we can see that there is a distinction. Avrunoti apara shakti. Apara, the other shakti. Apara also means the power which is completely different from the Vikshepa power. A power which is supreme than the Vikshepa power. If it does not veil, what projection will be possible? So therefore, apara shakti is the supreme kind of power. Sa samsarasya karanam. This is the cause for creation. The projection is not really going to be harmful. Projection doesn't cause problem. What causes problem is not knowing that that is a projection. Not knowing that what I am transacting in the world with is false. I take something in this world, but when I look at that world, when I look at that object, or when I look at it, I see it with the eyes of likes and dislikes. And this eye of like and dislike is the avrana. It has caused me to not see the reality. Therefore, I have now created a likes and dislike for it. So projection doesn't cause me problem. What causes me problem is the avrana. And what we try to do is, most of the time, we try to fix our projection, which helps in somewhat. But if we go at the root of this, we focus on the root cause, then we will see, we will be able to remove the problem. So knowledge is what removes that ignorance for us. So the Apara Shakti, the other power, that is the veiling power which covers the reality for us. Okay. So the three shlokas that we saw had to give us the idea that this entire creation is caused by Maya. Maya has two powers: power of projection and power of veiling. Both power are doing their respective role, but the Avarana Shakti is the first power that goes into effect, and Viksheva Shakti is the next power. Why the first power? How do I know that Avarana Shakti first goes in effect? It is because I am able to see the effects. I can never know the cause for it. I never know that Maya is, I never know that there is something that is causing, I don't know what is the real reason for causing it, but I know that it is being caused. From the effect, I can tell that something is causing it. I may not know what is that cause. So because I can see that, I know I can have a thought that there is a cause for it. And this is what is meant as, I know that Avarana Shakti is in force. Why do I know that there is likes and dislikes? Because I don't see the truth. The moment I see the truth, likes and dislikes go away for me. Like how a child may have a like for a candy. But if you understand that candy is good for you only in moderation, then you will not have that desire. But kids, they don't have that thinking. Whatever gives me taste, let me have it. So there is something that is veiling the knowledge and then giving us the projection. This is how the two Shaktis they work. Okay, so with this, we'll pause for today. And if there are questions or thoughts you would like to share, please feel free. I do see a hand up.
Hari Om, Dhirenji.
Yes,
My, when you were talking about it, I was just thinking of a prism. You have white light, and depending on how you turn the prism, you can see multitude of colors, right? So which is like the projection, the Maya, right? That's the effect that you're seeing. But the reality is you have only one light which is falling on it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I was just trying to sort of relate it to that. So I was trying to understand from that concept.
Yes. So in Vivek Chudamani, a definition of Maya is given, not Maya. How do I know the Karana, the causal self? So it is said, Karyanumeya Sudhyaiva Maya. I understand the nature of Maya from its effects. So because you said that there are a rainbow of lights, that must mean that the light is being broken at some point in time or some place for it to show a spectrum. So then you have to, if you trace it back, you may not be able to see the white light, but if you trace it back, you can get it there. We can see it because we are the one who created that prism. Mm-hmm. We cannot see the cause of the samsara, but from the effects, we can posit that Maya is made of sattva, rajas, tamas. How, we look at the world. Everything that is there in this world has the essence of existing. We cannot say that there is nothing in this world that does not exist. It exists. Mm-hmm. A space exists. Black hole in a space exists. Mm-hmm. We cannot say it is not there. So this mere fact that it is shows that there is existence in it. Okay. This is the idea of the reality. But now, when you look at the Maya, how is it that this Maya is there? When we say it exists, the self exists, it exists without changing. But how does the world exist? The world exists in the opposite way. It exists by changing only. Right? So, because the world changes, we posit that the reality of the self, which is non changing, has been hidden, and the Maya is now projecting the change on that changeless. This is one way that we can trace back and say that Maya is at works.
Pretty abstract and takes time to just absorb everything. And yeah. Thank you, Dhirenji. Can I ask another question?
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
I was reading something about relation between physics and Advaita. So in one of those articles that I was reading, it's beautiful because you had till the end of the 18th century, you had the Newtonian physics, and beginning of 19th century, the quantum physics came into play, right? And that's where they saw that light is a wave. I can describe it as a wave. But then the moment I make an observation, it becomes a particle. So they saw that light has, it can exist as a wave, it can also exist as a particle. That's what Einstein found. So he got his Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect for that. So in that article, how beautifully they were trying to bring this relation, and then they saw with Advaita philosophy, they were saying the same thing. They said, you have your mind waves, the vrittis, it's a wave. The moment you make an observation, that is where the existence and the world comes into play. It just collapses, and that's where you have the Jagat, right? Which is mithya, basically, right? Otherwise, if you don't make it, that's where, that means you're talking from the perspective of the seer.
Yes.
Now the seer is seeing that wave. The moment he sees that wave, there comes existence of the world. I don't know. I mean, that's what I was trying to understand. It's very, I was reading that article and they were trying to connect. And that's where I saw that these scientists like Einstein, these people who came up with the quantum physics theory, they were completely mesmerized with the Advaita philosophy. And they said the quantum mechanics and the wave mechanics can be explained very well with the Eastern philosophy. So I thought maybe I should share that. And it was very mind-boggling for me, and I was trying to connect with your class.
Okay.
Trying to understand the seer and the seen.
I have to think about this thought. It is very new thought to me, and I have not studied the quantum physics or any of that. My science is not so great, but I think I understand what you are trying to say.
Well, I think what happened in the early 19th century was they could explain everything using math equations, but they could not quantify it using experiments. That's when they said the only way we could probably understand this part of science is only through Vedanta. That's when all these scientists, they read our philosophy. Pretty interesting. Thank you.
Dhiren,
yes, Hari Om Sukumar.
Can you just explain in little more detail how you said something which I lost the thought, how you can, from the effects, how you can go and figure out what Maya is or Maya is?
Okay, so one effect we saw in the world is that there is a continuous change. correct? So that continuous change is the cause. The cause we are saying is Maya. Now, if the scripture is saying to us that that is Maya, but how by looking at just the change, we can say that it is to be caused by Maya, is you look at the nature of Brahman, which is changeless. Okay, so nature of Brahman is changeless. Nature of Maya is to cover that. So by covering it, we no longer now see the changeless, and we see the complete opposite of the changeless. And that is how we can correlate that Maya is working to veil the nature of the self and posit something opposite. Another way to see it is the nature of the self is conscious, right? We talk about the self is consciousness. So this consciousness in the world we see is completely opposite. It is jada. Everything, every aspects of this creation is jada, inert. Body is inert, mind is inert. And like that, everything is inert. That which is consciousness has been veiled and has now been presented as jada.
Okay. So we can infer the veiling power.
Yes.
That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. But then, okay, I mean, there are two questions. How do you infer the projecting power?
The projection is happening.
Okay.
The fact that I am seeing an object and I take that object to be real, that is a veiling power. But the fact that it is me transacting with it and it is going to change, I know that it is a projection.
Okay.
Because if I am interacting with the book and I think that this is the book, then projection is already working. Because I know I'm not interacting with the book, I'm interacting with pieces of wood, or technically I'm interacting with the plant, or technically I'm interacting with the seed.
Yeah.
You can, go on and on like that. So the fact that the world is there and I am interacting, it tells me that I'm projecting, I'm working with the projection.
Okay. But now going back to, one more level, just peeling, going deeper, the statement we make that Brahman is changeless is, I mean, till you realize, till you get to that point, it is something that you have to take as an given because it's given by the scriptures or told by the gurus.
To some extent.
Okay.
To some extent, we do have to have faith in the scriptures, but to a greater extent, we can ourselves feel that there is an existence in me which is far lasting than my thoughts, than my body.
Yeah, but
I try to distance myself, like how the Drshya Viveka was shown in the beginning. When I do distance myself, I see that there is a self in me that is more long lasting than the others.
Yeah, but that also can be explained if you don't start with that assumption that there's Brahman. If the other way of looking at it is or modeling it, is saying that, well, those are different types of thoughts you have, different types of memories you have, and each memory has a different time effect, and then certain memories last longer than other memories, and at the end of the day, everything is in the head. I mean, you can't see outside. So even the fact that, Drshya, that projection you're talking about, Sakshi, at the end of the day is all in my head. And all head, and right?
True, what I understand what you're saying, but the concept of Sakshi mentioned is not a thought. When you know your thoughts, you're not using a thought to know yourself. Say just right now, okay? Right now, we are having conversation, correct? In this conversation, can you for a split second separate yourself from you and just observe as you are listening? Or as me, I am talking. You can separate. Are you using a thought to separate, or are you just using your presence to separate?
I'm using my brain power. What's the right word? I don't remember the right word. But essentially, I'm using my brain power to separate, which is all in the brain.
You're using the power. You're using the brain as a tool. But my question was, are you knowing your mind as a presence, or are you knowing the mind as a thought? And what we will find is, brain is just a tool. Brain is just doing the chemical functioning to make us see it. But when I know myself, it is through presence I am knowing. The sakshi is through presence, is knowing the thought. Whereas when I know a thought, when I know an object like this, when I know a book like this, it is a thought that is giving me the idea about a book. Like that, I'm not knowing my thoughts. That is not how a sakshi is knowing the thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think it more, but one can always describe it as a different level of thought, because it's all in the brain, and brain only has thoughts.
You'll need to think a little more there as to how the presence of the sakshi
I don't want to
really
keep on
works.
arguing. Yeah.
Okay, we are at 8 o'clock. If there are any further questions, then we can prolong it to our next class, and we'll see those questions. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dhirenji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hari Om,
Thank you.
Dhirenji.
Thank you.
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om, Dhirenji. Thank you.